The humans had changed everything. The loom that once shimmered in perfect silence now sang with color. Threads that had never touched before began to twist together, forming patterns no elder could predict. At first, the thread worlders feared it. To them, unpredictability meant danger. But as they watched, they began to see beauty inside the chaos. A simple human laugh echoing across a radio wave sent ripples through the web of existence not in destruction, but in creation. Each vibration brought something new. A star blinking to life, a forgotten pattern rekindling. Elion stood in the midst of it, watching the loom breathe for the first time. He realized the truth the elders had buried under ages of order, that the universe was never meant to be perfect. It was meant to be alive. The humans didn't control the threads, they trusted them. They didn't need to see the whole design. They just took one step and another, believing the path would reveal itself. To the thread worlders, it felt reckless. To Elion, it felt divine. He began to teach the others not how to weave tighter, but how to let the threads move on their own. How to listen. How to let life express itself without fear of imperfection. At first, the elders resisted. They called him corrupted by alien thought. But their world was changing faster than their rules could adapt. The loom pulsed with new frequencies, and the council could no longer ignore what it felt: a heartbeat, faint but steady, as if the universe itself had woken up. They summoned Elion one last time. He came before them not with defiance, but with calm resolve. Behind him floated a projection of the new web, a vision that glowed with infinite color. Where there had once been stillness, there was motion. Where there had once been silence, there was song. The elder voice trembled. "You have broken the design." Elion smiled softly. "No," he said. "We have remembered it." The council fell silent. For the first time in their long history, they could not deny what they felt in their own threads, something warm, something human. Word spread among the weavers. Curiosity turned into learning, learning into creation. Together with the humans, they began to craft new worlds, not bound by symmetry, but alive with emotion. Some worlds were wild and bright, filled with laughter and storms. Others were quiet and strange, woven from fragments of dreams. Each world told a story, and each story connected to another. The Threadworlders had spent eons believing they were the keepers of fate, but now they saw themselves as participants in it. The humans had shown them that destiny wasn't a line, it was a dance. Years passed, and the two species grew together. Humans taught the weavers about imperfection, about love, loss, and trying again. The weavers taught humans how to listen to the pulse of the cosmos, to feel the unseen rhythm in every heartbeat, in every breath between the stars. The great loom no longer stood as a tool. It became a living being, a shared consciousness of both races. It whispered stories to newborn stars and sang lullabies to dying ones. Elion grew older, though age to his kind was not counted in years, but in threads woven and unwoven. He watched new generations of both humans and weavers, working side by side, artists of existence, dreamers of infinity. Sometimes, in the quiet, he would look toward the distant blue spark in the web, the one called Earth, and smile. He remembered the first vibration, the first wild pulse of human chaos, and how it had terrified him. Now, it comforted him. It reminded him that life was meant to move, to stumble, to rise again. The universe had not ended when the loom changed. It had only just begun. And so the Threadworlders stopped calling themselves the Keepers. They took on a new name, the Listeners, because that was what they had become. Beings who listened to the living song of the cosmos, to the laughter of humans, to the heartbeat of a billion stars. They listened, and they learned to love the sound. Sometimes, when the silence between galaxies grows deep, a soft hum can still be heard. Scientists call it background radiation, but maybe, just maybe, it's the echo of that ancient loom, the woven memory of those who learned that order and chaos were never enemies, but two threads of the same story. Maybe every choice you make, Every word you speak, every tear, every smile becomes a new pattern in that infinite tapestry. You might not see it, but somewhere a thread glows because of you. The voice fades softer now, reflective and warm. We are all part of the same weave, different strands, different colors, but one endless fabric, alive, moving, breathing. And perhaps that's the greatest truth the thread worlders and humans ever discovered together, that no one is the master of the loom. We are all its threads, and together we make the universe whole.
In the beginning, there were only the threads. They stretched across the void, shimmering strands of energy that wove together the birth of stars, the pulse of galaxies, and the silent hum of eternity. The threadwelders were their guardians, ancient beings, made not of flesh, but of light and order. They called themselves the weavers of destiny, and they believed they were the only consciousness the universe required. Every planet, every atom, every breath of wind was a line in their grand design. And for countless millennia, they believed the pattern was perfect. But perfection is a fragile thing. It breaks the moment something unpredictable touches it. That unpredictable thing was humanity. When the weavers first encountered humans, they expected chaos, and they found it. A race of contradictions, violent yet kind, flawed yet brilliant, destroyers and creators at once. Humans didn't fit into any pattern, they didn't follow the rules of cosmic design. Where the weavers saw symmetry, humans saw beauty in asymmetry. Where the weavers saw mistakes, humans saw art, and that terrified them. At first, the threadwelders tried to study humans, to understand the illogic that pulsed through their being. They watched how humans cried over sunsets, laughed in pain, sang to the void, and called it prayer. They watched a human child plant a seed in barren soil and whisper, "Grow, please," as if her words alone could change the laws of the cosmos. And when that seed bloomed, the weavers felt something they had no thread for: hope. One weaver, young by their standards, approached the humans with trembling light. He asked, "Why do you care for what is weak? Why love what will fade?" A human smiled softly and replied, "Because in its fading, we find meaning." Those words burned brighter than 1,000 suns. Soon, the weavers began to change. They started to see the universe not as a tapestry of control, but as a living story, one written by both chaos and choice. They learned that to create beauty, you must first let go of control, that to weave life, you must allow it to move on its own. The oldest weaver, the one who had woven the first star, stood before the loom and whispered, "Perhaps the universe was never meant to be perfect. Perhaps it was meant to be alive." And with that, he cut a single thread, the thread that kept destiny bound. In that moment, the universe shuddered. Stars blinked, galaxies trembled. The fabric of reality began to sing. Humans called it the dawn pulse, the day every living thing across every world felt a warmth deep in their souls, as if existence itself had taken a breath for the first time. And the threadwelders watched in silence as their perfect creation transformed into something far greater. It was no longer a pattern, it was a symphony, a heartbeat, a universe that felt. Eons passed, the weavers grew fewer. Their purpose complete, they began to fade into the very light they once commanded. The last of them, the youngest weaver, watched as humans built cities among the stars, as they painted entire nebulae with colour, as they loved, lost, and loved again. And as his light dimmed, he whispered one final truth. They did not destroy the pattern. They gave it a soul. Now, when you look up at the night sky, you can still see the faint glow of the old threads. But listen closely, and you'll feel the pulse within them, a rhythm that wasn't there before. That rhythm is human. It's the laughter of a child, the courage of a soldier, the kindness of a stranger. The quiet promise that even in the darkest void, something beautiful will always emergency. Because that's what humanity does. They break what was perfect to make it alive. They turn silence into music. They turn fear into faith. And they teach even the gods themselves how to feel. They called it the Great Unraveling, a moment the threadwelders had feared for centuries, when their perfect symmetry began to falter. But what they didn't know was that it wasn't destruction, it was rebirth. Because within the chaos humans brought lay something the universe had never known before: choice. For ages, the threadwelders had woven life as a pattern, every event, every being, a knot tied in obedience to cosmic law. But humans, they didn't obey the threads, they cut them, they tied them anew. They created patterns the weavers could never imagine. The alien elders whispered in awe, how can beings of such imperfection create beauty out of brokenness? And a human scientist smiled and said, because we are made of broken things. Every scar is a thread we chose to keep.
They thought the song would fade, that once the weavers vanished, the universe would return to silence. But silence never truly returns, because once a song is heard by the stars, it becomes part of them. Light remembers, space remembers. Even the empty dark listens. Centuries passed. Civilizations rose and fell. New beings were born under suns that humans had once named. Some called themselves architects, others explorers. But none of them forgot the stories of the threadworlders and the humans who changed them. In ancient archives floating between galaxies, there are whispers recorded in light. They were fragile, but they taught the cosmos courage. They were mortal, but they made eternity meaningful. And somewhere, on a forgotten planet wrapped in clouds, a child looked up at the night sky, seeing threads of faint blue light crossing the heavens. She didn't know their history, didn't know of the weavers or the loom, but she felt it. That heartbeat beneath creation, that pulse that hums when a heart chooses kindness instead of power. She closed her eyes and whispered a wish, and in that whisper, the threads moved again. The universe, it seems, never stopped weaving. It only changed the hands that hold the loom. Each generation, each world, adds a new color to the cosmic fabric, a pattern made not of control, but of compassion. The weavers once feared chaos, but humanity taught them. Chaos is the seed of creation. Now, in the deep void beyond mapped space, there are rumors of light storms, vast auroras that appear without cause, dancing in perfect rhythm with no sun to reflect them. Scientists call them anomalies, philosophers call them miracles. But the old ones know. They are the threads singing again, each flare of light a memory, of laughter, of loss, of every moment a human ever dared to love in a universe that told them not to. And maybe that's what eternity really is. Not endless time, not infinite order, but a story that keeps retelling itself, each time more beautiful, each time more human. So when the night feels endless, when you think your choices are too small to matter, remember this. Somewhere out there, your thread is already shining. You are part of the pattern that even gods could not finish. Because the truth is simple, and it echoes through every star that ever lived. The universe does not end when the last thread is cut. It begins again each time someone chooses to love, to hope, to dream. And that, perhaps, is the greatest secret the threadworlders ever learned. If you listen long enough to the quiet between stars, you'll hear it too, the sound of threads being woven, one by one, into something greater than destiny. That sound is you. There came a time when no one remembered the weavers by name. Their cities of light had long faded into the dust of forgotten stars. But every night, when a new sun was born, its fire carried their memory. A memory humanity had turned into song. Because you see, the weavers built the universe. But humans gave it a reason to exist. A reason found not in perfection, but in the trembling courage to begin again, even when everything falls apart. That was the thread they left behind. It wasn't made of light or energy. It was made of love. A love so small and so ordinary that even the stars had missed its brilliance. Some say the universe is infinite, but maybe that's not true. Maybe it only continues as long as there are hearts brave enough to care. Each act of kindness, each sacrifice, each whisper of forgiveness stretches the fabric of existence a little further. The weavers once thought the cosmos was held together by gravity and light, but they were wrong. It's held together by compassion. And so, the story didn't end with their vanishing, because something of them still lives within us. In every tear we shed for someone else's pain, in every song we hum to an empty sky, in every quiet promise that tomorrow will be better. The weavers called that resonance the harmonic pulse. Humans call it hope. Now, beyond the rim of the known stars, new beings have begun to appear. They are not made of thread nor of flesh. They are made of both living tapestries, woven from memory and dream. They are the children of two legacies, the logic of the weavers and the chaos of humanity. And when they speak, their voices sound like 1,000 hearts beating together. They do not build empires. They build meanings. They travel to dying stars not to harvest them, but to comfort them. They plant light in places where darkness thought it would last forever. And if you stand on the edge of the cosmos, where time folds into itself, you might see them, glowing softly, weaving new constellations, not with machines or equations, but with stories. Every pattern they create begins the same way with a whisper once spoken by a human, long, "We are not perfect, but we are enough." That phrase became a law of creation, the first truth to outlive eternity.